Welcome. Sound effects for the show to a special NCAA March Madness episode of Triple Overtime. We are back for season two of Triple Overtime. We had a amazing show last year with the NCAA March Madness tournament. Such a blast. This year, unfortunately, we do not have Blake, but we still have Dylan. Amar, how you guys doing? We'll start with you, Dylan. How you feeling? Are you excited about this tournament that is literally going to take over our lives for the next month?
I am very excited for the tournament. We don't have Blake tonight, but we do promise that due to a scheduling conflict, we don't have Blake tonight. He will be here for possibly the next round or the round thereafter, maybe both rounds. So you are going to hear from a bracketologist, bracket expert, Blake Chadwick, sooner rather than later. So don't fret. Blake will be part of the show. He's just not here for our first round, unfortunately. But I am super excited. So those who are watching have no idea. We've been going through some technical difficulties here. All three of us are recording on our phones right now, like a few goons over here. As you can see, I have the background. Austin's got the background. Amar set his background to a boring white room mode there. So I am super jacked for March Madness. So I just finished my bracket a little bit ago. I've done some rewrites. I've done some fill-ins. I've fixed a couple of things. I'm not changing anything before the start of the tournament tomorrow, unless Rutgers loses the play-in game, in which case I might have to change that because I got Rutgers going, winning a couple rounds there. So I think, part homer, part has shown they can beat some top teams. They had 4 wins in a row against ranked teams earlier this year. And, not earlier this year, but not too long ago. But the thing is they've lost to DePaul. They lost to UMass earlier this year. So Rutgers very up and down, but my heart is with the Scarlet Knights. So I picked them to go a round or two. Amar, how are you feeling about the tournament right now?
Feeling pretty good. I got my all my brackets filled out, my NCAAs and my NITs. I'm ready to go. In case you guys are fairly new to the show, the reason why Dylan is homering on Rutgers is because he actually went to Rutgers. He's a Rutgers grad. So my school, not in the tournament, Seattle U, we were actually number 1 seed in the WAC conference tournament, got knocked out in our first game, because that's how we do. My other team, Georgetown, also not in the tournament, possibly the worst major conference team in the country this year. So I have no real deep rooting interest in this one. I just, so I was able to, I guess, make my picks objectively, so to say. But yeah, I'm ready to go, ready to, didn't I win our bracket last year? Or, I won our pool. I think that's how that went.
Yeah, you did. You did win it.
Yeah.
I can't remember who got second. I just know I didn't win. I think I've gotten second or third a couple of years in a row in Dill Madness. Anyone who is interested in joining Dill Madness before the tournament starts tomorrow at 12:15 Eastern, I will put the link in the comments down below. So we're looking like we got a good turnout for Dill Madness so far. Around 20 teams right now. For Dill Madness. And the object of the game is to take a drink every time I say the word Dill Madness. So with that being said, let's get right into it. Let's dig right into it. I want to talk
Were you just hoping for a rebrand, Dylan? If you say it enough, maybe NCAA is like, you know what, maybe that's what we should be calling. Then we don't have to specifically have it in March every year, right? We can schedule around it a little bit easier.
Yeah, there you go. And then they'll pay me some royalties there for Dill Madness. The tournament concept came up with called Dill Madness. Let's get right into it. I'm just gonna go. Let's just all give our final 4 right away, and then we'll get into some of the nitty gritty. Biggest upsets, games you're looking forward to the most, players you're watching, things like that. I'll just kick it off here. My final 4. I've got Gonzaga, which I feel like is a pretty easy chalk final 4 to go with. They look like at times the best team in the country by far, right? So we all know how good Holmgren is. They still got Drew Timme, and then I got Arizona as another Final Four team there, also very chalk. Auburn, a number 2 seed I got in the Final Four. That one I really didn't have any specific reason. It's just kind of how the Midwest fell for me. You know, it wasn't like I went in thinking like Auburn's definitely going to the Final Four. It's just at the end of the day, it's like, well, I'm picking Auburn over Kansas in the Elite Eight, and they fell in the Final Four. Then I got my big upset one for the Final Four. I got UCLA returning to the Final Four. They went last year as a play-in team. I believe they were an 11 seed, right, Namar? And this year I got them going back in a rematch against Gonzaga. Partly the reason I picked that is just because I really want to see it. You know, I want to see Johnny Juzang go back and do his thing against the Zags. That Zags UCLA game last year was one of the best games I've ever seen in my life. Not just college basketball, sporting events, period. You know, it had some great drama there. Amar, give me your Final Four. What do you got going on over there?
You know, funny, although I agree with you that Gonzaga has looked like the best team in the country most of the season, I don't have them in the Final Four. I've got Duke coming out of that West region with the, you know, Coach K's last year. They also have the best player, Paolo Banchero. I mean, when Duke and Gonzaga match up in the Elite Eight, which I have, the best player on the floor is going to be Paolo Banchero. And I've got Duke facing Kentucky coming out of the East, the 2 seed there, with the possible National Player of the Year in Oscar Tshiebwe. And I've got Arizona coming out of the South, the 1 seed. I mean, a lot of people got Arizona there. But I've got them facing Iowa coming out of the Midwest. That's the 5th seed. You know, lowest seed I've got, you know, getting that far. They have Keegan Murray's like, you know, one of the top scorers in the nation, first team All-American. So all these teams, I mean, a lot of star power. I mean, you know, it's hard to say that like they're these huge underdogs because they have such great players. But yeah, that's what I got. Arizona, Iowa, Duke, Kentucky. And did you give who you had winning the whole thing or just the Final Four so far?
I just did my Final Four, so.
All right, I'll keep it at that. Yeah.
Okay. You're on mute, and it's your turn to give your Final Four.
So I have, I mean, it is definitely a homer pick. Gonzaga going to the Final Four up against Baylor. Excuse me, as well as Tennessee going up against Kansas. Tennessee being my lowest seeded pick at number 3. I just think that, you know, it seems as of late, the March Madness tournament has been incredibly top heavy. You know, we've just seen a lot of teams, number 1 seeds, number 2 seeds, you know, tend to make the Final Four, tend to make the championship, tend to win it all. So just kind of went with my gut on that. You know, I'm sure there are a few upsets. I personally don't foresee a ton of them. I don't have a single 15 beating 2, 16 beating 1, 13 going to the Elite Eight, you know what I mean? Anything like that, or Final Four, whatever the case. I think we're going to see the cream rise to the top, and we're going to see the best colleges in basketball all season end up being the best college basketball teams in this tournament. And then I got Gonzaga winning it all. So they got to do it eventually, right? It's kind of like me predicting the Browns going to the playoffs. At some point, it's going to happen, and I will be right. So
there you go. That segues to my next question. Who do you have winning it all? Austin's got Gonzaga. I also have Gonzaga. It feels like the tournament this year is more wide open than it's been in a long time. And it's kind of like Gonzaga or Arizona. You can't go wrong with either one of those. I got those 2 in the championship game. I got Gonzaga over Arizona in a close game. Would not be surprised if Arizona pulled it off, though. Amar, I know you like Arizona. Tell me about it.
I've got Arizona winning the whole thing, beating Duke in the final. And if you remember last year, I think the reason why I won our pool is because pretty much everybody had Gonzaga and I have Baylor. And so it was like I was, you know, not in the top up until that last game. And that's one for me.
Yeah.
So
you skyrocketed to the top of the race. Nobody else had Baylor. That was a great pick, you know, and Baylor.
Didn't you have Houston going a lot further than everybody else too?
I didn't have them going to the Final Four.
Or maybe that was me.
They did.
I know I think I ended up being one of the top 3 or whatever, and I know that Houston pick helped big time. But yeah, that Baylor pick was genius, Amar. Jeez Louise.
I had like Oklahoma State going to the Final Four or something. I think I like 2 of my Final Four teams made it through and ended up playing in the final, and I just picked the right one. So yeah, I've got Arizona. You guys have got Gonzaga. Looks like we're doing the real, West Coast Pac-12, West region thing here. So that works for me.
So let's talk about some upsets. I'll give you a few of my first round upsets over here. I got Rutgers / Notre Dame, whoever wins the play-in game, going over Alabama, the 11 over the 6. Not a huge upset there. Alabama's been very up and down. I've also got Indiana going over St. Mary's. Indiana beat Wyoming in their play-in game. I've got them taking down St. Mary's. Indiana, very hot right now. I think Indiana could make some noise beyond just that, but I've got them losing the next round. I got Virginia Tech, another very hot team, destroyed Duke, destroyed North Carolina, won the ACC tournament. Virginia Tech, the 11 seed, I got them taking out number 6 Texas, who I know a lot of people like number 6 Texas, but I got Virginia Tech kind of continuing that momentum. And then let's go over to the South here. Upsets. I don't have a whole lot of upsets. The biggest one I've got is 11 Michigan over Colorado State. I know by the numbers, an 11 over 6, it's a big upset, but Michigan's supposed to be a really good program. I feel like they've underperformed so far. So even though that is an 11 over 6 upset, to me, it doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel like a giant upset. So I got them over Colorado State. I've got as far as the other big ones, I don't really have any big ones in the Midwest here. Now I'm looking at it, I've got Iowa State over LSU, the 11 over the 6 is my biggest one in the Midwest there. So I feel like I went fairly chalk during this bracket, but it never works out this way. We all know how this is going to go. We're going to have, speaking of Blake Chadwick, he's got Vermont in the Sweet 16. For those who watch Blake Chadwick's bracket breakdown on the Blake Chadwick professional page, little plug for my buddy there. He's also got Indiana in the Elite 8. So Blake is on the lookout for some big time upsets, some Cinderella stories. And if you guys follow Blake Chadwick, he does predict a lot of good upsets like that. He's really good at coming up with those games that a lot of people don't see coming, casual fans. So Amar, tell me about some of your first round upsets that you got going on over there.
I've got Alabama losing to, I'm predicting Rutgers, that playing games happening kind of like supporting this, yeah. So yeah, I've got whoever wins that game taking down Alabama, but losing to Texas Tech in the next round. Let me see. I have Indiana beating St. Mary's in the first round, but then not getting past UCLA. San Francisco over Murray State. It's a 10-7. It's not numerically a huge upset, but a lot of people are really high on Murray State. So let me see. Ohio State making the Sweet 16 as a 7 seed. To do that, they would have to take down 2 seed Villanova. So that's one of the upsets I've got. And then, Iowa going to the Final Four. That's upset. I also have Miami going a few rounds, including taking down Auburn, 2 seed Auburn in the Midwest region. I like Miami. They're a very veteran team. They've got, I think, 4 sixth-year seniors on the roster, including their point guard Charlie Moore. And I'm always a big one for like experience in the tournament, and just having seniors, especially in the backcourt, I think is like a big deal. So yeah, that's kind of what I got upset wise.
Austin, tell me about it. Give us some of your first round upsets, just upsets in general that you got going on over there.
So as I mentioned before, I'm pretty true to these top seeds, going all the way, making the big runs, Final Four championships, etc. I do have a few though, especially first round. I don't really have anybody going Elite 8 or too crazy of a Cinderella story, I guess you could say. But starting out, big shout out to Blake, because I also have Vermont moving forward. I think that's that's probably my biggest upset. I think they have an incredibly stout defense with the consistent ability to shoot well and score points. You know what I mean? So I think they play quite a bit better than what their seeding shows. And that's one team that I feel really good about in terms of being able to be one of those major upsets, that at a 13. So I've also got Virginia Tech winning the first round. Most all of these, I've got them winning one round and then out. Miami, I have going the furthest. I want to say, they get bounced out second round anyways. But yeah, Virginia Tech, I've got San Fran at 10 moving on, and Virginia Tech. Those are both out of the East. Loyola Chicago, I have moving on. That's a team that it's kind of funny, Dylan, because even before you went to Rutgers, I was always kind of a fan of their football and basketball programs because, and this ties in, Loyola Chicago is very similar to them in the way that if they go out in glorious fashion, right? Like they've been known for a long time to bust a lot of brackets and be a team that you really can't count out regardless of the seeding, regardless of who they're going up against, because they just have this weird ability once they make it to this tournament to elevate their play and just cause problems for people. And so I learned a long time ago not to bet against Loyola Chicago. So I got them at least winning one game, right? So that's the only upset I have in the South. And then I've got one in the Midwest. That's also Miami, as Amara mentioned. I think that's a great pick. I think it's, again, another team that plays well above its seeding. And something in my gut tells me that they're going to go further than I have them going. But again, this year especially, it's hard for me to pick against the top seeds. I don't know of any team in those top 2, 3, and 1 seeds that where you're like, that's really suspect. I don't necessarily, you know what I mean? Like Houston kind of last year was one of those teams where they were really good. Don't get me wrong. They went a long way, but the really slow paced team, kind of a boring team to watch. You're just very defensive heavy. So a lot of people felt that they were like overseeded, and I really don't see that with any of these top teams this year.
See, Austin's being modest. He's actually the reason why Dylan went to Rutgers. He's a booster.
Yeah.
He's a Rutgers booster. He's like, you gave Dylan some, some handshakes there and kind of, got the star recruit over.
I actually introduced him to Ron Harper Jr. He wouldn't know him otherwise.
And now they're best friends, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
We had one class together, Ron. For those who don't, Ron Harper Jr. and I had one class together, and it was online. So I think we saw each other once during the semester. But really good guy, Ron Harper Jr. And I root for him regardless of him going to school there because he's a fun player to watch. But he happens to go to the school that I went to. So go Rutgers.
For those of you who do tune in week to week, God bless you. You know that Ron Harper Jr. has been brought up here before, and this is the first time I'm hearing that it was an online class. I just assume you saw him every day in a sit-down class.
They sat next to each other, and it was like taking notes off each
maybe
other.
he was helping him out with his notes. And, you know what I mean?
Well, as you guys remember, this was during COVID, so everything was online. So
right.
I got a real quick question about how you guys do your brackets. Like, are you just start at the top game by game until you get to the end? Or I know some people, they kind of start backwards. Like, okay, I know I want, Gonzaga and Arizona and whoever in my Final Four, and you kind of go backwards from that almost. What's your style?
I cannot do the backwards bracket thing. I will get all messed up. I go region by region. I start from the top. I do each round, next round, until I get that team out of that region there. So, for example, with the West, I started with Gonzaga over Georgia State. Then I went to Boise State versus Memphis. I got Boise in that. And then I just went from there. You know what I mean? I can't do it reverse style. I don't go into my Final Four. What's that?
I said, and so you go from there up until you get, your Final Four team, and then you go to the next region.
Exactly. And then once my Final Four, then I decide who's going to the championship game, who's winning the championship, et cetera. Although for, I think the past, 2 seasons, I picked Gonzaga and I've lost each time. So it doesn't really matter. I got close last year. They got there until they got their doors blown off by Baylor. They ran into a buzzsaw. But that's neither here nor there. It's a whole new year. So, Austin, how do you fill out your bracket?
So I go region by region, round by round. So, I kind of similar things. Start in the West, start at the top. I do first round, boom, then go down to the next to the next region, so on and so forth. So, and just kind of work my way down. And here's the thing, as crazy as it sounds, because typically I'm a big research and numbers guy and everything when it comes to sports. But honestly, the NCAA tournament is all gut feeling to me. I do look at some of the numbers, I look at some of the comparisons, see to have some form of educated gut feeling, I guess you could say. But it's just one of those where I look at it, look at my comparisons, and whichever team, when I write it down, I feel it in my gut. All right, that's the pick. And I mean, I typically finish in the top 3 to 5 of Dill Madness every year that I've done it. You know what I mean? So,
And we've been for 30 years, brother.
Yeah, right.
This is the 3rd annual edition of Dill Madness. So
it is. And well, not only that, but even like work ones and stuff like that, I usually end up winning or I come pretty darn close. So I think last year, if I remember correctly, I was in the lead and Amar came storming back with that flipping Baylor pick and ended up leapfrogging me.
If you remember, the year before that, you were in the lead, and then Blake Chadwick
did the same thing.
He picked Virginia to win. He picked Virginia from worst to first two tournaments ago.
And it was that single pick that carried him all the way through.
He beat you by 2 points or something, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that was
let's get into some individual players. Which players are we looking forward to watching? It could be unknown, it could be a superstar. Myself, I want to see Chet Holmgren. I want to see how he does under the bright lights. A lot of talk's been made about this guy. Could he be the number 1 NBA pick? Could he be a top 5 pick? I definitely think he's going to be a lottery pick either way. It seems to look like he might be one and done. So I want to see him put up some numbers, have a good tournament run. I want to see how he does against elite competition. Like they play in the West Coast Conference. They have some good teams there, but I don't know if anybody's going to confuse that with the blue bloods of college basketball, right? Like, how is Chet Holmgren going to do against, like a UConn, a Duke, a Rutgers? No, I'm just kidding. How's he going to do against the top teams? That's what I really want to see. Amar, what player or players are you looking forward to seeing in the tournament?
I mean, although I watched him quite a bit this year, I want to see Johnny Juzang and how he's going to follow up last year's tournament run. He had that run last year, and you would have thought his stock was at its highest and he would go pro, but he wasn't really projected to go in the lottery. I mean, he was late first round at best. And he didn't really blow it. He wasn't didn't take a huge leap this past regular season. He didn't win Pac-12 Player of the Year, which everyone kind of assumed he was. He wasn't a first-team All-American, which everyone assumed he would be. He kind of put up the same numbers he did last year. And I look at the mock drafts now going into this tournament, and he's like a second rounder, And so I'm interested to see, can he put together another big run like he did last year? Can he play himself into the first round? Can he do even better? Because it's kind of he hit this peak and then he's just kind of stayed right there. He's kind of plateaued. So I want to see what he's going to do.
A lot of what Johnny Juzang incredible was how clutch he was, right? He was taking over big time games. These one and done, win or go home games. I don't remember he's always been a good player, obviously, but I don't remember hearing a whole lot about him before the tournament started. And then just watching him, I was like, wow, this guy's incredible. He doesn't do anything particularly awesome. You're not going to see Johnny Juzang break away for a 360 dunk or something. He just scored buckets in clutch situations. He has water in his veins, man. He's one of those kind of players. So I'm right there with you. I can't wait to see what he does. I hope he puts together another strong tournament, especially because I got UCLA in my Final Four over here. Because if he doesn't put together a strong tournament, I'm probably screwed and we'll probably lose my 3rd edition of Dill Madness. Austin, tell me about it, brother. I've
got a player real similar to what Amar mentioned. Who I'm watching is Drew Timme over at Gonzaga. Holmgren as well, because I think you're right. I think this is a huge, for him, it seems as if the number 1 overall pick is his to lose, right? So he needs to show and prove that he really is that guy. Amar just you good
Hello.
there?
Yeah, I'm good.
Earthquake. No. But Timmy, who has been there for a while, who has played, all the way into this is his senior year, if I remember correctly, has been a consistent player, has consistently led that team in ways to being number one seed and all these postseason runs, et cetera, et cetera. But man, he's just constantly disrespected. At best, he's a late first rounder, and even in some mock drafts, he's been undrafted, which is just crazy to me because, there's just a lot of thought that he's hit his ceiling, that you've kind of seen the best basketball that you're going to see from him at the next level. And not that he can't be serviceable, but he just doesn't have a lot of room to grow. And I don't think that's the case. I mean, every year he's gotten better and better. He's gotten more efficient. And I think that he has the opportunity to play really, really good basketball. And if he can help lead Gonzaga with Holmgren to a title this year, I can see no way that guy doesn't go to a mid, maybe even lottery pick, and maybe I'm just being crazy because it's just crazy to me that he isn't rated higher. He's an incredibly talented, hardworking, great post player that has worked on developing a jump shot, though he's not super efficient at it. I just think that there's a place for him in the league, and there's a team that is up towards the top of this draft in the NBA that could benefit greatly from having him, right? So,
I mean, he's going to be someone that, like, he doesn't stick out to, like, scouts and to draft people, but you look around the NBA and a lot of good teams have a player like him.
Exactly.
But they were probably a second round pick, or they were even undrafted, but they played their way into like a spot in the rotation. I feel like, he doesn't have the athleticism and the measurables and all that kind of stuff. So he's not going to be a lottery pick or, maybe even not a first rounder, but I feel like he'll get a job and hang around,
Hey, if Von Miller can accrue like 2.5 sacks in the postseason and get paid, $500 million or whatever, then Timmy can have a good March Madness and become the number 1 overall pick. All right.
Hey, let's take the basketball here. We're not going to about the Denver.
One more player I could mention, if you don't mind. Forgot to mention before, Jabari Smith for Auburn. He's actually someone at the top of a lot of draft boards, possibly going to be the number 1 pick or, top 3 pick. I think he's going to be really key to how far Auburn goes. He's like this, you look at him like build wise and shooting ability and stuff, and he's got like this Kevin Durant-ish quality about him, but he hasn't been really good at like creating a shot. And it's kind of weird because like he's Auburn's best player, but he's not their like go-to guy in clutch situations because he's not like okay, clear out, I'm gonna take the ball, break this guy down off the dribble and score. He's more been like a catch and shoot, coming off screens, that kind of thing. And if he can show more of that creative ability and like getting his own shot, he could actually carry them pretty far in the tournament. But some of the games that they've lost have been in part because he wasn't able to do that, and if his shot wasn't on that day,
That's a really good pick though.
Yeah, I've got them actually going out early to Miami. Like I said, I think Miami's experience is gonna cause problems for Auburn. But at the same time, I could see Jabari Smith like getting hot and going on a run and taking Auburn pretty far.
All that, he's got him losing like almost immediately. So before we get out of here, because we want to put some respect on the women's tournament here, I got my women's bracket. I know, Amar, you filled one out. Austin, I don't know if you had time to fill one out too. But let's just quickly give our Final Four and our champions for the NCAA women's tournament here. So I'll go first. I got out of Greensboro, I got Arizona making it. Out of Wichita, I got Baylor. Bridgeport, I got UConn. UConn, a powerhouse women's college basketball team. And then Spokane, I got Stanford. I went incredibly chalk, as you can tell. But I mean, it just didn't
Has UConn lost yet? Didn't they win like
programs.
190 games in a row or whatever?
Oh, they've lost this year. Yeah,
that was a while ago. Austin has a college basketball. And then for I watched
WNBA. All right.
And then for the women's championship game, I got the Baylor Lady Bears defeating Connecticut. I really wanted to pick UConn, but I just, I wasn't sure. So I went with the Baylor Lady Bears. Amar, what do you got going on the NCAA women's tournament?
I've got South Carolina coming out of Greensboro. Why aren't we calling these regions like East, East, South?
Dude, I was gonna ask the same thing, but I didn't want to tie us up too much.
And it's the most random cities. It's not like, like New York, LA, like
the Wichita region, like what?
Yeah, like why?
It's just the Richland, the Richland, Washington region.
Yeah, that's weird. Anyway, I've got South Carolina coming out of the Greensboro region, taking out Iowa. I've got Iowa going pretty far in both tournaments. If you haven't seen Iowa's, okay, if you aren't someone that watches women's college basketball, watch Iowa and Caitlin Clark. They call her like the Stephen Curry of women's ball right now. Crazy range, like she could put up 40 and hit 8, 9, 10 threes in the game. Like great player to watch. Anyway,
and she'll also go 0 for 16 with 2 points as well. So I'm just kidding.
The warm-up routine's crazy though. Like even if let's see, Tennessee coming out of the Wichita region, beating Michigan to get there. I got Stanford coming out of the Spokane region, beating LSU, and UConn coming out of the Bridgeport region, beating Notre Dame. And then my final is South Carolina and Stanford, with Stanford repeating as national champs.
Sounds pretty good. I've got for my biggest tournament run, I of course homer picked into oblivion. I got WSU in the Elite Eight, defeating Notre Dame, but then falling to Connecticut. I couldn't go that far as beating UConn. So that's probably my biggest story run there. So I did pick a couple upsets, but I went mainly chalk with the women's tournament. So
yeah, which I mean, it makes sense. I think that the talent gap is still there in women's ball. You're not going to see a lot of 14-3 upsets or anything like that like you would in the men's tournament. So I think it makes more sense to go really chalky in that tournament. I don't really have. I'm seeing like anyone underdog making a huge run. I mean, Notre Dame is a 5th seed, and I got them going to the Elite Eight, so I guess you could call that one. But I don't have like a like a double-digit seed or an 8-9 team going like very far in this one.
The biggest one I took was Delaware, number 13 over number 4 Maryland, but then they lose to Virginia Tech next round. So I wouldn't call that a Cinderella run. Yeah,
I mean, I had probably a homer pick to like Gonzaga as a 9 seed, like winning in the first round, but then losing to top seed Louisville in the second. Yeah,
I just felt really strongly about Baylor. I don't know why. I just had a gut feeling. I'm not going to lie to you and say I watched a bunch of women's college basketball this year. I didn't get a chance to watch a bunch of men's college basketball this year. I watched a lot of Rutgers, watched a lot of Big Ten, paid attention to WSU, paid attention to the top teams. But other than that, I didn't get to watch nearly as much as I'd want to typically. So the tournament is where I'm going to be able to watch a lot of it, hopefully. So both tournaments. So I'm looking forward to both. And it'll be interesting to see which one of these brackets, my men's and women's, I'm only doing one each, which one I do better in. So I'm trying to stick to one bracket of each this time because, my buddy Tyler, who works with me, I don't want to be like him. He's got 7 brackets going over here. So even though.
Yeah, I
used to do that with fantasy teams. Yeah, I used to have a big problem with that with fantasy teams, right? I had like 15 fantasy teams each season, and I'm like, geez, I cannot. And then there was the season that Dylan and I did a IDP league where you literally picked every single position. And that was hard to track, bro. That was hard to keep track of.
Yeah, we had an 8-hour draft that year.
Yeah. Yeah, you were literally starting guys on the defensive line that were like practice squad players because there was like 22 teams.
Like I know people that have like 20 fantasy teams. I can't do more than like 3. I mean, the last few years I've had 2. Brackets. Yeah, I do one each now. I don't do a bunch of different brackets. So.
Well, that I think that's a good segue to let's go ahead and get out of here. Let's go ahead and log off and let's get excited for the NCAA tournament. By the time you're watching this, you know, it should only be a few hours away. And just, you know, drop a comment, click like on the old YouTube there, subscribe, you know, hit that bell so you get more great content. We've got more exciting shows coming up, and we'll be with you this whole NCAA tournament, March Madness, men's and women's. And hopefully next time we get old Blake Chadwick, bracketologist, with here. So, and a few more surprises beyond that. So I got a few things up the old sleeve, if you will, for March Madness triple overtime coverage. So for Austin Sutter, for Mar Burton, I'm Dylan Holloway. We thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.